The hospital CEO humiliated a bruised nurse until her Navy SEAL twin took her place. You are a liability, Nora. Look at you. Isaac Vance didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The silence in the VIP wing was absolute, broken only by the hum of the heart monitors. Nora trembled, clutching her arm where the skin was turning a mottled purple. "Sir, the patient, he was aggressive. I don't care about the why," Isaac cut in, his eyes cold, scanning the bruise on her cheekbone with distaste, as if her injury were a smudge on his pristine hospital reputation. "Mr. Sterling is our largest donor. You upset him. You look like a victim, and frankly, it's unprofessional. Pack your things. Get out of my sight before I make the termination permanent." The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Nora stumbled into the small, dim apartment she shared with her sister, the door clicking shut behind her like the lid of a coffin. She didn't turn on the lights. She couldn't bear to see her own reflection in the hallway mirror, the swelling on her cheek, the red rim around her eyes, the shame that felt heavier than the damp wool of her coat. She dropped her bag. It hit the floor with a wet thud. "Nora!" The voice came from the shadows of the living room. It wasn't tentative like Nora's. It was low, controlled, and vibrated with a dangerous sort of calm. Lena was sitting on the floor, surrounded by a disassembled Glock 19 and a rucksack that still smelled like the arid dust of a frantic extraction zone. She had only been back for 48 hours, 2 years of covert ops, 6 months of silence, and she had come home to find her twin sister fading away. Lena stood up. She moved with a fluid, predatory grace that took up too much space in the tiny room. She didn't hug Nora immediately. Her eyes, sharp and analytical, swept over her sister's face. They locked onto the bruise on the cheekbone, then the way Nora favored her left arm. The soldier's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Who?" Lena asked. One word, a complete sentence. Nora crumbled. She sank onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. "It doesn't matter, Lena. It's over. He sent me home. He said I was a liability." Lena walked over, kneeling in front of her sister. Her hands, calloused and scarred from years of holding steel and climbing over walls, gently pulled Nora's hands away from her face. "Tell me." "It was Mr. Sterling," Nora whispered, her voice hitching. "The VIP patient in the East Wing. He didn't like the IV. He grabbed me, twisted my arm. When I pulled away, he threw the tray. It hit my face." Lena's jaw tightened, a muscle feathering near her ear. "And security?" "There is no security in the VIP wing unless the patient calls for it," Nora said, tears spilling over. "Isaac, Mr. Vance. He came in right after. He didn't ask if I was okay. He apologized to Sterling. Then he pulled me into the hall and told me I was unprofessional, that I looked like a victim." "Isaac Vance." Lena tested the name. It tasted like ash. "The CEO?" "He suspended me. Unpaid. Said if I come back before the bruises fade, I'm fired." Nora looked up, her eyes pleading. "I need this job, Lena. The medical bills for Mum's estate. I can't lose this." Lena stood up slowly. She walked to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked street. She saw her reflection in the glass. Same high cheekbones, same almond eyes, same mouth. But where Nora was soft, Lena was forged iron. Where Nora slumped, Lena stood ready to strike. "You're not going back there, Nora," Lena said softly. "I have to." "No." Lena turned around. The shadows cut across her face, making her look severe. "You're going to stay here. You're going to ice that arm. You're going to sleep for the first time in 3 years." Lena reached up and pulled the tie out of her hair, letting the dark waves fall. It was the only thing she'd kept long, a tether to her femininity in a world of camouflage and Kevlar. "I'm going back," Lena said. Nora blinked, confused. "What? You can't. You're not a nurse." "I'm a combat medic with level 4 trauma certification. I can stitch an artery in a sandstorm while taking fire. I think I can handle a catheter." Lena walked to the bathroom door. "And as for Mr. Vance, he wants a nurse who isn't a victim. He's about to get one." "Lena, no, he'll know. You act different." Lena paused at the door. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, then back at her broken sister. A cold, terrifying smile touched her lips. "That's the point, Nora. He thinks he broke you. He's about to find out he just sharpened you. The St. Jude Medical Center was a fortress of glass and steel, a monument to modern medicine and, apparently, Isaac Vance's ego." Lena walked through the automatic sliding doors at 06:55 hours. She was wearing Nora's scrubs. They were a size too loose in the shoulders and tight across the thighs. Nora was cardio-thin. Lena was squat-heavy muscle. She had pulled her hair back into the exact messy bun Nora favored, applied a touch of concealer to her own unbruised cheek to mimic a fading injury. Irony was a weapon she enjoyed, and softened her gait. But she couldn't hide the eyes. As she walked toward the nursing station, heads turned. Usually, Nora walked with her gaze fixed on the floor, clutching her clipboard like a shield. Lena walked with her head on a swivel, assessing threats, exits, and lines of sight. She moved through the crowded lobby like a shark parting a school of fish. "Nora!" The head nurse, Brenda, a woman who looked like she chewed gravel for breakfast, frowned over her glasses. "I thought Vance sent you home for the week." Lena stopped at the desk. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She leaned one hand on the counter, invading Brenda's personal space just enough to establish dominance. "I decided I couldn't afford the time off, Brenda," Lena said. Her voice was a perfect mimic of Nora's pitch, but the cadence was different. It lacked the upward inflection of a question. It was a statement of fact. Brenda blinked, taken aback. "Well, he's not going to like it. You know he's doing rounds in the VIP wing at 700. "Good," Lena said. "I have a patient to check on." She grabbed the chart for room 404, Sterling, and clipped it to her board. "Nora," Brenda hissed, leaning in. Sterling requested a different nurse. "If you go in there, Mr. Sterling has a difficult vein structure," Lena lied smoothly, recalling Nora's complaints from weeks prior. "I'm the only one who can stick him without leaving a mark. Unless you want to explain a hematoma to the CEO." Brenda hesitated. In that second of hesitation, Lena turned and walked away. The elevator ride to the 4th floor was silent. Lena checked her pulse. 55 beats per minute. Resting rate. She wasn't nervous. She was hunting. When the doors opened, the atmosphere changed. The VIP wing smelled of expensive lilies and floor wax. It was quiet. Too quiet. Lena walked down the hall. She saw him before he saw her. Isaac Vance stood outside, room 404, reviewing a digital tablet. He was tall, just as Nora had described, with the kind of broad shoulders that suggested he rode crew in college or spent an hour hitting a heavy bag before dawn. His profile was sharp, severe. He looked like a man who measured the world in profit margins and liability clauses. He sensed movement and looked up. For a split second, Lena saw the flicker of annoyance in his dark eyes. He opened his mouth, likely to issue a command or a reprimand. Lena didn't slow down. She walked straight toward him, maintaining eye contact. In the animal kingdom, staring is a threat. In the human world, it's a challenge. Nora never made eye contact. Isaac paused. The reprimand died in his throat, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "I thought I made myself clear yesterday," Isaac said, his voice a low baritone that vibrated in the quiet hallway. "Go home, Nora." Lena stopped 3 feet from him, too close for a subordinate. "Mr. Sterling needs his morning vitals, sir, and my rent needs paying. Unless you're planning to terminate me for cause, I have a shift to finish." Isaac's eyes narrowed. He looked at the bruise she had painted on her cheek. It looked real, but the woman standing in front of him didn't match the injury. Her shoulders were back, her chin was up. There was a stillness to her that he hadn't seen in the 3 years she'd worked there. "You're defying a direct order," Isaac said softly. "I'm prioritizing patient care," Lena countered. "Standard hospital protocol, Section 4, Paragraph 2. Disruption of continuity of care is a liability." She threw his own word back at him like a knife. Isaac stared at her. For the first time in years, he really looked, at the nurse. He saw the faint scar above her eyebrow that he'd never noticed before. A souvenir from a shrapnel fragment in Kabul. He saw the way her hands were steady, not trembling. "Fine," Isaac said, stepping aside, his curiosity piqued. "But if Sterling complains even once, you won't just be fired. I'll ensure you never work in this state again." "Understood," Lena said. She pushed past him into the room. Isaac didn't leave. He stood in the doorway, watching. The room was expansive, more like a hotel suite than a hospital room. Mr. Sterling, a man in his 60s with a face ruddy from years of scotch and entitlement, was watching the news on a flat-screen TV. He turned as Lena entered. His eyes lit up with a malicious glimmer when he recognized her. "Well, look who crawled back," Sterling sneered. "Come for another lesson, sweetheart." Lena set the tray down on the bedside table. The metal made a sharp clack. "Morning vitals, Mr. Sterling," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the fear he fed on. "I didn't call for you," Sterling grunted. "I want the blonde one, the one with the—" He gestured vaguely to his chest. "She's unavailable," Lena said. She grabbed the blood pressure cuff. "Arm." Sterling didn't move his arm. Instead, he reached out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was tight, moist, and arrogant. "I don't like your tone," Sterling hissed. "Maybe I need to speak to Vance again. Tell him you're hurting me." From the doorway, Isaac stiffened. He prepared to step in, to defuse the situation, likely by removing Nora. He watched, waiting for the flinch, the teary apology. It never came. Lena didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped into the grip. In a motion so fast Isaac almost missed it, Lena rotated her wrist, pressing her thumb into a pressure point on the inside of Sterling's radial nerve. It was a restraint technique used to subdue combatants without leaving a mark. Sterling gasped, his hand flying open as a shock of paralysis shot up his arm. Lena caught his hand before it fell, placing it firmly on the bed. She leaned in close, her face inches from his. To Isaac, it looked like a tender gesture of a nurse soothing a patient. To Sterling, looking into Lena's eyes was like looking down the barrel of a gun. "Mr. Sterling," Lena whispered, her voice like silk over a razor blade. "If you touch me or any other nurse on this floor again, I will insert this IV catheter in a place that will make sitting down very uncomfortable for the next month. Do we have an understanding?" Sterling's face went pale. He nodded, breathless. "Excellent," Lena said, straightening up. She wrapped the cuff around his arm efficiently. "BP is elevated. Try to relax." She finished the vitals in silence. Sterling didn't make a sound. He looked terrified. Lena turned and walked toward the door. She stopped in front of Isaac, who was standing frozen, his hand halfway to the doorframe. He looked from Sterling, who was cowering in his pillows, to the woman standing before him. "All done," Lena said. "He's resting comfortably now." Isaac blocked her path. The hallway was empty. "What did you do?" Isaac demanded. His voice was hushed, urgent. "I took his blood pressure," Lena said innocently. "I saw him gasp, Nora. I saw him flinch." Isaac looked at her, searching for the truth. "He looked afraid of you." Lena met his gaze. She stepped closer, invading his personal space again. She smelled of antiseptic and something earthier. Gun oil, maybe, or just raw adrenaline. "Mr. Sterling was confused," Lena said. "I just clarified the boundaries of the nurse-patient relationship." Isaac felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was a tightening, a jolt of electricity. He was used to being the alpha in every room. He was used to Nora being a shadow. But this woman, she was burning bright enough to blind him. He looked at the bruise on her cheek again. "Does it hurt?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. Lena touched the makeup on her cheek. "Only when I laugh, sir." She stepped around him and headed for the nurse's station. Isaac watched her go. He watched the way her hips moved, not with a sway, but with power. He watched the way her boots— she was wearing tactical boots under her scrubs, he realized with a start— thudded softly against the linoleum. He pulled out his phone and dialed the head of security. "Pull the file on Nora Holloway," Isaac said, his eyes still fixed on her retreating back. "I want to know everything. Where she went to school, where she lives, and what exactly happened to her in the last 24 hours. He hung up. The game had changed. He just didn't know the rules yet. The pager on his belt beeped. Code blue. ER Trauma Bay 1. Isaac swore and ran toward the elevators. As CEO, he was a doctor first, a trauma surgeon who had traded the scalpel for the boardroom, but never lost the instinct. He hit the lobby floor running. The ER was chaos, a multi-car pile-up on I-5. Gurneys were everywhere, screaming, blood. "We're short-staffed," a resident yelled. "I need hands in Bay 2, massive hemorrhage." Isaac threw his jacket off and grabbed a gown. "I'm scrubbing in." He pushed through the curtains of Bay 2. The patient was a young male, chest crushed by a steering wheel. He was crashing. "I can't get the line," the nurse cried. "Veins have collapsed." "Move," Isaac barked. He reached for the central line kit. "Femoral artery is nicked," a voice said from the other side of the gurney. Calm, commanding. "I've got pressure on it. You intubate." Isaac looked up. It was Nora, or the woman wearing Nora's face. She was knee-deep in the chaos, her hands inside the patient's open wound, clamping the bleeder with her gloved fingers. Blood was splattered across her face, masking the bruise. "He's aspirating," Lena barked. "Dr. Vance, tube him now. I can't hold this bleeder forever." Isaac froze for a microsecond. Nora Holloway fainted at the sight of arterial spray. She worked in geriatrics for a reason. "Doctor!" Lena snapped. Isaac snapped into motion. He grabbed the laryngoscope. "Tube!" They worked in perfect, terrifying unison. He secured the airway. She clamped the artery. She anticipated his moves before he made them. She handed him instruments he hadn't even asked for yet. It was a dance of violence and salvation. When the patient was stable and the trauma surgeon took over, Isaac and Lena stepped back, peeling off their bloody gloves. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving Isaac breathless. He looked at her. She was wiping blood off her forehead with the back of her hand, looking bored. "Who are you?" Isaac whispered, the noise of the ER fading into the background. Lena looked up at him. The mask slipped for just a second. He saw the soldier. He saw the killer. He saw the sister who would burn the world down to protect her own. "I'm just a liability, sir," Lena said. She turned and walked away, leaving Isaac Vance standing in the blood, completely and utterly captivated. The hospital CEO humiliated a bruised nurse. Part 2. The adrenaline in the trauma bay had evaporated, replaced by the sterile hum of the HVAC system in Isaac's penthouse office on the top floor. The view was spectacular, a panoramic sweep of Seattle's rain-soaked skyline. But Isaac wasn't looking at the city. He was looking at the woman sitting across from his mahogany desk. She hadn't fidgeted once in 10 minutes. The old Nora, the Nora of yesterday, would have been picking at her cuticles, her eyes darting to the floor, apologizing for taking up space. This woman sat with a spine of steel, her hands resting loosely on her lap, perfectly still. She was watching him with an intensity that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Explain," Isaac said. He tossed a file onto the desk. It slid across the polished wood and stopped at her fingertips. Lena didn't look at the folder. She kept her eyes on him. "Explain what, sir? The successful intubation? Or the fact that your patient is alive?" "The file, Nora," Isaac pressed, his voice tight. "I pulled your personnel record. You graduated nursing school with a 3.8 GPA, but you failed the trauma rotation twice. Your clinical instructor noted that you freeze under pressure and have a severe aversion to arterial bleeding. You work in geriatrics because it's slow. Safe." He leaned forward, planting his hands on the desk. "The woman in the ER today clamped a femoral artery with her fingers while barking orders at me. She didn't freeze. She took command." Lena shifted slightly. She had anticipated this. Nora's file was a testament to her gentleness, her empathy, traits that made her an incredible healer, but a terrible soldier. Lena had to thread the needle. "People change, Isaac," she said, using his first name. It was a calculated risk. Isaac blinked. She had never used his first name before. It sounded intimate and defiant, coming from her mouth. "Not overnight," he countered, though his voice had lost some of its edge. "And not like that. You moved like you've done it 1,000 times. Where did you learn that technique? The pressure point you used on Sterling? The intubation assist?" Lena leaned forward, mirroring his posture. The air between them crackled. "You told me I was a liability. You told me I looked like a victim. Maybe I got tired of being both. Maybe I've been training to ensure that the next time a man puts his hands on me, he loses the ability to use them." It was a lie wrapped in the truth. Isaac studied her face. He was looking for the crack in the facade, the tremor of deception. He saw the bruise on her cheek, the one he had dismissed yesterday. Up close, under the harsh office lights, it looked angry. Guilt, sharp and sudden, pierced him. "I was hard on you yesterday," Isaac admitted, the words tasting foreign. He wasn't a man who apologized often. "Mr. Sterling, he's a difficult man, but he funds the pediatric oncology wing. If he pulls his support, children die. It's a calculus I have to make every day." "So you sacrifice the pawns to save the king?" Lena asked, her voice cool. "I sacrifice my pride to save the hospital," Isaac corrected. He walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. He was close enough to smell the faint scent of rain and antiseptic clinging to her scrubs. "But today, you were extraordinary. I don't know what changed, Nora. I don't know if you're on something, or if you've been hiding this capability for years. But I need that nurse on my floor." He reached out, his hand hovering near her chin, wanting to tilt her face up, to examine the bruise he had ignored. Lena didn't flinch, but her hand twitched, a reflex to intercept the reach. She stopped herself just in time. "I'm the same nurse I've always been," Lena said softly. "You just never looked close enough to see it." Isaac dropped his hand. The tension was palpable, a physical weight in the room. He felt drawn to her, in a way that was unprofessional, illogical, and entirely overwhelming. "The board is hosting a gala on Saturday," Isaac said abruptly, stepping back to put distance between the fire and the fuel. "The donor appreciation ball. Sterling will be there. He's demanding a public apology for the incident this morning." Lena stood up. "He wants me to apologize for stopping him from assaulting me." "No," Isaac said, turning to face the window. "He wants me to fire you." I told him no. Lena paused. That was unexpected. "You defied the money?" "I told him you were essential personnel," Isaac said, his reflection in the glass catching hers. "I told him that if he wanted to file a complaint, he could do it through the legal department, where I would personally attach the footage of him grabbing your wrist." A slow smile spread across Lena's face. It wasn't Nora's shy, grateful smile. It was a wolf's grin. "Thank you, Isaac." "Don't thank me yet." He turned back. "You're coming to the gala." "As my guest." "Excuse me?" "Sterling is going to try to poison the board against me for keeping you. I need you there. I need them to see the essential personnel I'm fighting for. I need you to be charming, professional, and not break anyone's wrist." Lena weighed the tactical situation. A gala meant high security, VIPs, and Sterling. It was hostile territory, but it was also a chance to solidify her position and protect Nora's job permanently. "I don't own a dress," she said. Isaac's eyes swept over her form, lingering for a fraction of a second too long. "I'll handle that. 7 p.m. Saturday. Do not be late." The shift ended at 1900 hours. The rain had turned into a deluge, hammering against the concrete of the parking structure. Lena walked to the bus stop. Nora didn't have a car. She couldn't afford the city parking rates on a nurse's salary, a fact that made Lena's blood boil. She walked with her head down against the wind, but her senses were wide open. Footsteps behind her. 2 sets, heavy, uneven gait, not hospital staff. She didn't speed up. She slowed down. They were in the blind spot of the security camera, near the concrete pillar of level B2. Lena stopped, pretending to search for something in her bag. "Hey, nurse!" a voice rasped. Lena turned slowly. 2 men stood there. They were big, wearing leather jackets soaked with rain. They looked like hired muscle, cheap, brutish, and confident. "Mr. Sterling sends his regards," the taller one said, grinning to reveal a chipped tooth. "He says you have a hard time learning your place." Lena sighed. She genuinely, truly just wanted to go home and eat a pizza. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice dropping an octave, "I've had a 12-hour shift. I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I'm really not in the mood." "Cute," the man said. He lunged. It was a telegraphed, clumsy swing. A haymaker aimed at her face. Lena didn't block it. She slipped inside the arc, pivoting on her heel. She drove her palm into his chin, snapping his head back, while simultaneously sweeping his leg. He hit the concrete with a wet slap that echoed through the garage. The second man froze, his eyes widening. He reached into his jacket. Lena didn't wait to see the weapon. She closed the distance in a blur. She grabbed his wrist, twisting it outward until the radius bone threatened to snap, and drove her knee into his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a wheezing whoosh. He crumpled. She stood over them, barely breathing hard. The rain dripped from the edge of the parking structure, masking the groans of the men on the floor. "Tell Mr. Sterling," Lena said, leaning down, "that his blood pressure is getting dangerously high." She turned to leave and froze. A black Audi R8 was idling 20 feet away. The window was down. Isaac Vance was staring at her. He had pulled up to offer her a ride, trying to be the gallant boss. Instead, he had witnessed a level of violence that belonged in a Jason Bourne movie, executed by his geriatric nurse. Lena stared back. There was no point in lying. She couldn't say she took a self-defense class at the Y. That was military-grade CQC, close quarters combat. The rear passenger door of the Audi opened. Isaac didn't say a word. He just unlocked the doors. Lena hesitated, then walked over. She got into the passenger seat. The interior was warm, smelling of leather and expensive cologne. Isaac put the car in drive. He didn't look at her. He drove out of the garage, merging onto the wet street. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. The tension was thick enough to choke on. "Who are you?" Isaac asked finally, his eyes on the road. "I told you," Lena said, staring out the window. "I'm the woman who's tired of being a victim." "Bullshit," Isaac said softly. "I've seen self-defense. That wasn't self-defense. That was a neutralization. You broke that man's posture before he even threw the punch." He pulled up to a red light and turned to her. The streetlights washed over his face, highlighting the conflict in his eyes. He was terrified of her, and he was fascinated by her. "Are you in trouble, Nora?" he asked. "Is someone after you? Is that why you have the bruises? Is that why you know how to fight like that?" He thought she was running from something. He thought she was a woman in danger who had learned to bite back. Lena looked at him. She saw genuine concern. He wasn't worried about the liability anymore. He was worried about her. "I can handle myself, Isaac," she said. "Clearly," he muttered. He accelerated as the light turned green. But Sterling isn't a street thug. He's a billionaire with a bruised ego. He won't stop at two goons in a parking lot. Then I won't stop either. Isaac reached over and took her hand. His hand was large, warm, engulfing hers. Her knuckles were red from the impact. He ran his thumb over the redness gently. "I'm not going to let him hurt you," Isaac said. It was a vow. Lena looked at their joined hands. For the first time since she came home, she felt a pang of guilt. He was falling for the protector, but he thought he was holding the hand of the broken girl. "You can't save everyone, Isaac," she whispered. "I can try," he said. Saturday night arrived with the fanfare of a coronation. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel was draped in gold and velvet. The city's elite, tech moguls, politicians, and the old money families were swarming like sharks in tuxedos. Isaac stood at the top of the grand staircase, checking his watch. 19:05 hours. She was late. He adjusted his cufflinks, fighting the urge to check his phone again. He had sent a dress to her apartment. A stylist. He had wanted to arm her for the night, to give her armor that fit the battlefield of high society. "Waiting for your charity case?" Isaac stiffened. Arthur Sterling stood beside him, holding a scotch. The older man looked smug, his arm in a brace, a dramatic exaggeration of the wrist injury Lena had inflicted. "She's not a charity case, Arthur," Isaac said coldly. "She's my guest." "She's a liability," Sterling spat. "And after tonight, she'll be a memory. I've spoken to the board, Isaac. They agree. Staff assaulting donors. It's bad for business. Either you fire her tonight, publicly, or we pull the funding for the new wing." Isaac clenched his jaw. "You're bluffing." "Try me." A hush fell over the room. Heads turned toward the entrance. Isaac looked up. His breath caught in his throat. Lena stood at the top of the stairs. She wasn't wearing the dress he had sent. A safe, modest navy gown. She was wearing a floor-length dress of liquid emerald silk that clung to her muscular frame like a second skin. It was backless, revealing the topography of her body, the definition of her lats, the strength of her shoulders. But it was the scars that silenced the room. There was a thin, jagged white line running down her right shoulder blade. Another faded burn mark on her arm. She hadn't covered them with makeup. She wore them like diamonds. She had her hair up, exposing the sharp line of her jaw. She wore no jewelry except for a simple pair of pearl earrings. She descended the stairs not with the tentative steps of a nurse out of her depth, but with the regal, dangerous poise of a queen entering a war council. Isaac walked to the bottom of the stairs to meet her, ignoring Sterling. "I thought I sent you a blue dress," Isaac murmured as she reached the bottom step. "It didn't fit," Lena said, taking his offered arm. "Shoulders were too tight. I couldn't move. If I can't move, I can't fight." Isaac looked at her, stunned. "You intend to fight tonight?" "I intend to survive," she said. She looked over his shoulder at Sterling, her eyes locked onto the billionaire. She didn't glare. She smiled, a terrifying, confident smile that promised retribution. "You look," Isaac struggled for the word, "dangerous." "Good," Lena said, "because we have a problem." "Sterling?" "No." Lena leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. To the onlookers it looked like a lover's whisper. "To your left, 3 o'clock. The man in the waiter's uniform near the pillar. He's wearing an earpiece. It's not hospital security issue. It's military grade." Isaac frowned, glancing discreetly. "I don't—" "He's printing," Lena whispered. "He has a weapon under the vest. And he's not looking at Sterling. He's looking at you." Isaac went cold. "Me? Why? Corporate espionage? Kidnapping? An angry ex-husband of a patient?" Lena shrugged. "Doesn't matter. What matters is that we are in a choke point." "What do we do?" Isaac asked. He realized with a jolt that he trusted her completely. He trusted his nurse with his life. "We dance," Lena said. "What?" "If we move to the center of the floor, we have eyes on all exits, and he can't make a move in the middle of a waltz without causing a panic." Lena pulled him onto the dance floor. The orchestra began to play. Isaac put his hand on her waist. Her skin was warm, the silk slippery under his fingers. She felt solid, grounded. "Follow my lead," she said. "I usually lead," Isaac replied, automatically falling into the rhythm. "Not tonight, CEO, she murmured. They spun. For a moment, the threat faded. It was just the music, the lights, and the woman in his arms. Isaac looked down at her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the intelligence, the raw power. "You're not Nora," he whispered. It wasn't a question anymore. Lena froze for a microsecond, then recovered the step. She looked up at him. The deception hung between them, heavy and fragile. "No," she said softly. "I'm not." "Where is she?" "Safe," Lena said. "I'm her better half." "And who are you?" "I'm the one who's going to get you out of this building alive," Lena said. Over Isaac's shoulder, she saw the waiter reach into his vest. He wasn't alone. 2 others were moving in from the kitchen doors, a coordinated hit. "Dip me," Lena commanded. "What?" "Dip me." "Now." Isaac obeyed. He dipped her low. As he did, a silenced bullet hissed through the air, occupying the space where Isaac's head had been a split second before. It shattered a champagne flute in the hand of a socialite behind them. Chaos erupted. Screams. Lena didn't scramble up. She rolled out of Isaac's arms, ripping the slit of her dress open to free her legs. She reached under the table they were next to, and, Isaac watched in disbelief, pulled a ceramic steak knife she had apparently palmed from a dinner setting earlier. "Stay down!" she roared, her voice commanding the entire ballroom. The waiter raised his gun again. Lena threw the knife. It rotated once in the air and embedded itself in the gunman's shoulder. He dropped the weapon. Lena was already moving. She vaulted over a banquet table, tackling the second gunman before he could clear the kitchen doors. Isaac stood amidst the screaming crowd, watching the woman he thought was a timid nurse dismantle a hit squad with her bare hands and a piece of cutlery. He wasn't terrified. He was in love. The ballroom was a cacophony of shattered glass and panicked screams. Lena didn't wait for the dust to settle. She grabbed Isaac by the lapel of his tuxedo, hauling him up with a strength that belied her slender frame. "Move!" she barked. "Service exit! Kitchen, go!" Isaac didn't argue. He ran, his heart hammering against his ribs, following the emerald blur of the woman who had just neutralized 2 armed men with a steak knife. They burst through the swinging kitchen doors, startling a line of chefs. "Out the back!" Lena ordered, shoving a confused sous chef aside. They spilled out into the alleyway behind the hotel. The rain was still falling, washing away the glamour of the evening in grey sheets. Lena scanned the perimeter. Dumpsters, shadows, a delivery van idling at the curb. "My car is in the valet," Isaac gasped, wiping rain from his eyes. "Valet is a kill box," Lena said, her eyes darting to the rooftops. "We're burning the location. We take the van." She sprinted toward the delivery vehicle. The driver was unloading crates of produce. Lena didn't slow down. She flashed a badge she had pulled from somewhere. Isaac didn't see where, and barked, "Federal emergency! I need this vehicle! Run!" The driver looked at the woman in the torn silk dress and the man in the ruined tuxedo, and he ran. Lena jumped into the driver's seat. Isaac scrambled into the passenger side just as she gunned the engine. Tires squealed on the wet asphalt as they fishtailed out of the alley, narrowly missing a black SUV that screeched around the corner. "They're following," Isaac said, looking in the side mirror. "2 SUVs. Who are they?" "Contractors," Lena said, her face grim as she navigated the van through the downtown traffic with terrifying precision. "High-end. Sterling isn't just a donor, Isaac. He's cleaning house." "Why?" Isaac demanded. "Because of an IV? Because of a bruised ego?" "Because Nora saw something she wasn't supposed to," Lena said. She took a sharp left, jumping a curb to bypass a red light. "The inventory logs in the VIP wing. She mentioned it to me. Discrepancies in the fentanyl shipments. She thought it was a clerical error. Sterling knew she was getting close." Isaac went cold. The abuse, the intimidation, it hadn't just been cruelty. It had been containment. "You're not a Nora," Isaac said again. The adrenaline was fading enough for the reality to set in. "You said you're her better half. Who are you?" Lena checked the rearview mirror. The SUVs were gaining. She looked at Isaac, and for the first time, the mask dropped completely. There was no softness in her eyes, only the hard, clear resolve of a soldier. "I'm Lena," she said. "Lieutenant Commander Lena Holloway, U.S. Navy SEALs. Nora is my twin sister." Isaac stared at her. The pieces clicked into place. The scars, the reflexes, the 1,000-yard stare. The woman he had been falling for wasn't a miraculous transformation of his shy nurse. She was a weapon of war who had stepped into the line of fire. "Where is Nora?" he asked. "Safe house," Lena lied. She swerved to avoid a bus. "But we can't go there. If we lead them to her, she's dead. We need a fortress, somewhere with controlled access, backup power and supplies." "The hospital," Isaac realized. "St. Jude's," Lena nodded. "It's the only ground I can defend." "Isaac," she added, her voice softening for a fraction of a second. "I'm sorry I lied, but I needed you to trust me." "I do trust you," Isaac said, surprising himself. He looked at her profile, fierce, beautiful, and terrifying. "Get us there in one piece, Lena. I'll handle the rest." They abandoned the van 2 blocks from St. Jude's and entered through the underground loading dock. The hospital was quiet at night, a stark contrast to the violence pursuing them. "We go to the East Wing," Isaac said, taking charge as they entered the service elevator. "It's under renovation. It's a maze. We can lose them there." good," Lena said. She ripped the hem of her dress, tying a strip of emerald silk around her thigh, where a graze from a bullet had drawn blood, a wound Isaac hadn't even noticed until now. "I need a weapon, a real one." "The security office has a tactical locker," Isaac said. "4th floor." The elevator dinged. They stepped out and froze. Standing at the end of the hallway, illuminated by the flickering fluorescent lights of the renovation zone, was Arthur Sterling. He wasn't alone. 4 men in tactical gear flanked him. "You are a very difficult woman to kill," Sterling said, his voice echoing off the plastic sheeting draped over the walls. Lena stepped in front of Isaac. "It's a professional hazard." "And you?" Sterling sneered at Isaac. "You chose the wrong side, Vance. You could have just fired the girl. Now I have to burn the whole hospital down to cover my tracks." "You're trafficking drugs through my hospital," Isaac said, his voice cold with fury, "using the VIP wing as a distribution hub." "Supply and demand, Isaac," Sterling shrugged. "Kill them." The men raised their weapons. "Run!" Lena shoved Isaac into an open patient room and dove after him just as the hallway erupted in gunfire. Bullets shredded the drywall. They scrambled through the connecting bathroom into the next room. Lena kicked the door shut and dragged a heavy hospital bed in front of it. "We're pinned," she said, scanning the room. "I have a knife and a bad attitude. They have automatic rifles." "We have the hospital," Isaac said. His eyes landed on a wall panel. "This is the MRI suite renovation. The magnet is installed. It's just not powered up." "Is it quenched?" Lena asked, her mind racing. "No." Isaac smiled grimly. "And the emergency quench button is in the control room. If we can lure them in, I'll be the bait," Lena said immediately. "No," a small voice said from the shadows of the room. Isaac and Lena spun around. Nora stepped out from behind a stack of drywall. She was wearing scrubs, her face pale, trembling, but she was standing tall. "Nora," Lena breathed. "I told you to stay put." "I saw the news," Nora whispered. "The shooting at the gala. I knew you'd come here." "This is our home, Lena." She looked at Isaac. "I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't let my sister fight alone." "This isn't a debate," Lena snapped. "Get down!" The door behind the barricade splintered. A boot kicked through. "They're coming," Isaac said. "Nora, listen to me." Lena grabbed her sister's shoulders. "You need to run. Go to the fire escape." "No," Nora said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a frantic, shaking hand, holding a canister of liquid nitrogen used for dermatology. "You're the shield, Lena, but I'm the healer. And sometimes, to heal the wound, you have to freeze the rot." Lena looked at her sister. She saw the fear, but she also saw the same steel that ran through her own veins. "Okay," Lena said. "Isaac, get to the control room. Nora, when I give the signal, you blow that tank. I'll handle the rest." The door gave way. 2 mercenaries stormed in. Lena moved. She didn't have a gun, but she had the element of surprise. She tackled the first man, using his own momentum to drive him into the wall. "Now!" she screamed. Nora threw the canister and smashed the valve with a heavy wrench. A cloud of supercooled fog exploded into the room, instantly blinding the attackers. Isaac sprinted for the control room door. He slammed his hand on the emergency activation sequence. Inside the MRI room, the magnetic field surged to life. The mercenaries' weapons, steel, heavy, and magnetic, were ripped from their hands with the force of a car crash. The guns flew across the room, slamming into the bore of the MRI machine. The men, wearing tactical vests with steel plates, were jerked off their feet, pinned helplessly against the machine's housing. Sterling, standing in the doorway with a pistol, screamed as the gun was wrenched from his grip. He tried to run, but the magnetic pull caught the metal brace on his wrist. the one he wore because of Lena. He was dragged across the floor, slamming into the machine next to his hired thugs. Lena, wearing a silk dress and holding a ceramic knife, stood unaffected in the center of the room. She walked over to Sterling, who was pinned like a fly on fly paper. She leaned in close. "I think you need a sedative, Mr. Sterling," she whispered. She delivered a precise, knockout blow to his jaw. He went limp. Silence fell over the room, broken only by the rhythmic thumping of the MRI cooling pump. Isaac stepped out of the control room. He looked at the pile of unconscious mercenaries. He looked at Nora, who was shivering but unhurt, and he looked at Lena. The twins stood side by side, identical faces. But one was the storm, and the other was the shelter. "Code Black cleared," Isaac said, leaning against the doorframe, exhaling a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a week. The silence that followed the magnetic quench was short-lived. It was shattered not by gunfire, but by the wail of approaching sirens. Lena had triggered a silent distress beacon the moment they breached the loading dock, a fact she mentioned casually to Isaac as FBI tactical teams swarmed the facility. Isaac watched from the ambulance bay as Sterling was dragged away, his expensive suit ruined, screaming impotent threats about his legal team. 20 feet away, Lena was debriefing the agent in charge. She had shed the torn emerald gown for borrowed scrubs, but she wore them like armor. She stood rigid, her hands moving in sharp, precise gestures. She was Lieutenant Commander Holloway now, a stranger operating in a world of clearances and kill zones. She didn't look at him once. Beside him, Nora sat on the back of an ambulance, shivering as the adrenaline crashed. Isaac sat next to her, the weight of his own guilt heavy in his chest. "I failed you," he said quietly. "I should have protected you sooner." Nora offered a tired, knowing smile. "You didn't know we were at war, sir. You're a healer. Lena, she's built for the war. She always knows." 3 days later, the rain finally broke over Seattle. Sunlight flooded Isaac's office, illuminating the morning headlines. "Billionaire indicted in hospital drug ring." The board had tried to force Isaac's resignation, terrified of the scandal, but he had walked into the emergency meeting with a stack of new security protocols and a simple ultimatum: fire the CEO who stopped a cartel, or let him fix the hospital. They had voted unanimously to let him fix it. He had won, but the victory felt hollow. The office was too quiet. A soft knock broke the silence. Nora entered, wearing her standard navy scrubs. The bruise on her cheek was a fading yellow smudge, but her posture was different, upright, confident. "I wanted to thank you, sir," she said, "for the reinstatement and the hazard pay." "You saved us, Nora," Isaac said, standing up. "You're the bravest nurse I know." "No," she said, stepping aside to reveal the figure in the hallway. "She is." Lena stood there in dark jeans and a leather jacket, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She looked ready to vanish. "Mission accomplished," she said coolly, stepping into the room. "Threat neutralized. My leave is up, Isaac. The Navy gets cranky when assets go rogue." "Is that all this was?" Isaac moved around his desk, frustration rising. "An asset recovery?" Lena looked out the window, avoiding his gaze. "Nora belongs here. She has a life, a future. I break things, Isaac. I live in the dark so people like her can live in the light. We don't mix well with civilians." "You think I'm just a civilian?" Isaac challenged, closing the distance. "I'm a trauma surgeon. I've held hearts in my hands while they stopped beating. I know about the dark, Lena, and I know we need a head of security who understands that the real threats aren't always lawsuits." Lena let out a short, disbelief-laced laugh. "A seal in your hallways. I'd scare the donors. I don't care about the donors. Isaac reached out, his hand hovering near her face. I care about the woman who wears emerald silk like armor and isn't afraid to put me in my place. He touched her cheek, his thumb brushing the spot where her sister's bruise had been, the injury that started it all. I'm not easy, Isaac, Lena whispered, her resolve crumbling under his touch. I have ghosts. I'm a doctor, he murmured, leaning in. I'm good with scars. He kissed her. It wasn't tentative. It was a collision of relief and promise, sealing a pact between the soldier and the surgeon. When they finally pulled apart, Lena tucked a secure comms card into his shirt pocket. I have leave in 3 months, she said, her voice husky. I hear Seattle has excellent coffee. The best, Isaac promised. I'll be here. I'm counting on it. She smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that belonged only to her. From the doorway, Nora watched them for a moment before quietly closing the door. She walked down the hall, clipboard in hand, no longer a victim, but a survivor who knew exactly where she belonged. Isaac and Lena didn't just rebuild the hospital's reputation, they turned it into a fortress of healing. While Nora ran the nursing floor with a newfound quiet confidence, Lena roamed the shadows, ensuring that no one, donor or kingpin, ever threatened her family again. They were different sides of the same coin, the healer and the warrior, bound by blood and love. If you enjoyed this story of justice, romance, and twin-swapping revenge, please leave a like. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that strength comes in many forms, and don't forget to subscribe for more high-stakes drama.